welcome you all. So in the next 30 minutes, we are going to discuss anxiety, and I'm going to help you unlock a step-by-step system of tips, really, to ensure that your student is ready to take on college-related anxiety and high school-related anxiety. I'm going to teach you a few parent tips that you'll need to help your child cope with college-related anxiety wherever they're at in the process, so that they're able to make a really confident transition to school this fall, whether they're returning to high school or starting college or going back to college, and certainly help them to learn how to manage stress more effectively, because anxiety and stress are very, very closely related. So we want to cover that too. You're going to discover what keeps anxiety alive, actually, and leads to creating lousy academic semesters, ongoing stress, and in fact, anxiety really blocks millions of college students from performing at their best, having fulfilling college experiences, and preparing to have a really successful career. So it really impedes a lot of things that you want to be aware of. Also, in the next 30 minutes, you're going to get some pretty quick ways for you to identify anxiety triggers and traps that block peak academic performance, personal performance, and also lead to conflict within families and such. And how, by shifting your communication approach, can actually increase your child's coping confidence, which is one of the most critical skills that they can learn in college, in high school, and certainly prior to entering their career. And finally, we're going to talk about some tips on how to start using these how to start using these strategies immediately. And these are strategies that you have at your fingertips, and some of which you're probably already doing. So looking forward to that as well. Okay, my promise here is to give you straightforward solutions that can help you increase your confidence and assurance, rather than create more anxiety and concern about whether your child is going to thrive in high school and college. Also, to provide you with approaches to anxiety that have been tested over and over again and used by others in your very same situation. And I'll also show you some simple steps to help your student manage anxiety effectively, so that they can transition confidently this fall into a really awesome academic year, which is what we really want. Webinars, during this webinar, I'm not selling anything here. I'm really here to help. And I do have a gift for you at the end of it, so be sure to stick around for that, because you'll definitely want to hear about that. Okay, so I want to ask you parents out there, do any of these sound like you? Okay, so my student gets extremely anxious about their academic performance. I worry that my child's self-doubt may sabotage their success. I'm looking for tools to help my student be more confident. Are you concerned about your student's ability to manage stress? Is your student's reaction to anxiety really, really extreme? Do you worry that your student will cope with anxiety and stress ineffectively and in not so healthy ways? And you want a college-ready student or college graduate that can effectively manage anxiety and stress, so you don't have to do it anymore. You can actually be free of doing that, which would be nice. And that you dream of having a really driven, thriving student, and you want to leave behind any of your own overwhelming anxiety about how they're doing and how they're going to cope. So any of those sound like you? Is your child's high school or college experience increasing anxiety? Are you noticing things that you haven't noticed before? Is the anxiety getting worse for them, for you, for your family? You're worried, and there's very good reason to be worried. Anxiety is the #1 mental health concern among college students, over 40% of college students report at least moderate symptoms of anxiety sometime during their college experience. So that is a ton of students, almost half the college population. And you need to know the insight and skills in order to help them. So once you implement these tips that I'm going to provide with you, you'll be able to feel confident that your child is ready to identify any key traps of anxiety and help them to increase their coping confidence. You'll easily separate yourself from other parents who have the idea that, well, they'll go to college and they'll take care of it. They'll take care of it then. You'll be able to feel at peace and know that you have given your child the best strategies available for college and career success. You'll be confident that your child will not let anxiety get the best of them, which is what so many students do. And you will be able to help your child accomplish really important goals, personal goals, without overwhelming stress that most students experience. Most students, as much as 85% of students, report feeling completely overwhelmed by the stressors that they have during college. And you'll see how easy it is to learn and apply these tools that can benefit your student and your family right away. So with that, let's get to it a little bit with anxiety. And there's only a few things, 3 things that you need to know to help your child cope with anxiety and shift their high school or college experience from one that's full of worry and concern and questioning into confidence and really like limitless potential. None of these things that I'm going to tell you are secrets. These are out there and you're probably doing some of them, but maybe just not in the right way. So we want to try to fix that. Why am I talking about this? Well, as a college student, this is something that I went through. I went through for a while. In college, you know, I would freak out when I got a bad grade, especially when I had expected to do better and didn't do better. I avoided challenges, things that were really difficult for me because anxiety would kind of pop up here and there, questioned my abilities at times, and certainly procrastinated at times to avoid anxiety, which is one of the biggest concerns that parents have when they talk to me about anxiety with their child. Is I notice that they avoid things. I notice that they procrastinate or have difficulty managing their time, and a lot of times that's connected to anxiety. So lots of times in college, anxiety got the best of me, and I certainly want to help you so that anxiety is not getting the best of you or your child too. Professionally as well, I've used this process and have explored this issue for over 15 years to help thousands of college students transform from being anxious and stressed and worried and not confident into students who are really thriving and confident and became really career-ready professionals. And I discovered the secrets to taking on college anxiety while working on college campuses for 15 years as a psychologist, as a coach, as an advisor and a mentor, and really focused on college peak performance and career readiness. I was seeing a significant increase in the number of students reporting anxiety over the years and seeking help for anxiety, and students that just weren't thriving. And I certainly realized that I needed to go beyond just sort of the one-to-one meetings, which were fantastic, but I wanted to reach a greater number of people. And I especially wanted to give parents coaching for their college-bound or college student, and provide them with a system that is proven to work and that even someone like me could follow. So that's the reason behind all of this, really. So let's get to it. Tip number 1 on how to help your child take on college anxiety and stress. And this tip is really a critical one. So here goes. Don't make your anxiety their anxiety. Okay, so know that anxiety is contagious. So if you're feeling anxious and that anxiety is kind of coming out at home and with your child at some point, it's very, very likely that other people in the house will start to feel anxious as well. So anxiety is contagious. Your child's experiences of anxiety and stress is different than yours, and they will manage and handle it in a different way that you do. You might be worried because they don't seem to care about something as much as you do. I see this with like a lot of high school juniors, parents of high school juniors who, wow, they recognize that the kid down the street is already visiting colleges and my kid isn't, and they don't seem to care, but wow, I'm worried about this. A common mistake that parents make is to displace anxiety. So we take our anxiety and we kind of flop it on our kid's lap. And we do that in the hope that they will begin to care about whatever it is as much as we do. Okay, so we're displacing that anxiety. You cannot expect your child to react the same way that you do, or expect that they're going to do a complete 180 if they don't have effective coping strategies, coping confidence, and that the behavior, whatever it is that we want them to do, doesn't carry the same meaning as it does for you or me. Okay, so anxiety is contagious. Don't make your anxiety their anxiety. So what you can do about that, because it's a challenging habit to break, and it's a real common form of communication and interaction with kids. So the key here is to self-assess and adjust. Students need to increase coping confidence over time, and it takes time, and not wait until they arrive on campus to figure out how to deal with anxiety. And it's your job to understand and adjust the way that you increase their anxiety. I know it happens with parents, and I'm one of them. So what I want you to do is I want you to list 3 reactions that you've had to your child when you've been really concerned, recently, ideally. So it could be about like final grades that have come in, or them not taking action for preparing for college. If you have a high school senior and they haven't done the Common App yet, or whatever it might be. So list those reactions and get as specific as possible. You're most likely going to notice a few things. One, you're going to start listing their problems, what they are doing, what they aren't doing, asking them if they're worried about something, comparing them to the kids down the street who are doing things, and using lots of statements starting with you. So you don't do this, you don't do that, you need to do this, you should do that. You get the idea. This rarely, if ever, works. And it's an approach that will likely lead to students shutting down, avoiding conversation with you, looking at you and you knowing that information is going in one ear and out the other, and they're not absorbing anything. They might become really defensive and argumentative, and it may actually increase your frustration with the ongoing conflict and lack of movement on their end. So really important to consider that. Now, back to those 3 reactions that I want you to write down. I also want you to write down answers to these 3 questions during those reactions, right? So, how was I feeling? What actual message did I want to convey to my kid? And what was the impact of my delivery? So what impact did that delivery actually have on the conversation? When you learn to adjust your approach to anxiety, you'll model effective communication of feeling, increasing self-awareness of ineffective communication patterns that occur, and you'll actually work to lower your students' anxiety, which is really key. And when you consistently practice this, you're teaching a really critical skill, and that's the skill of how to make a self-assessment and make adjustments to our reactions, which is really critical for them to learn. So let me give you some insight into the importance of assessing and adjusting and how this kind of works in action. And to do this, I'm actually going to bring in advice from a 7-year-old. And at the time, actually, she was 6. So we have a 7-year-old daughter, but when she was 6, for some reason, it was cool. She became really interested in doing Irish dance. And, you know, we encouraged her and we enrolled her in a school. And if you don't know about Irish dance, they have competitions called feshes that occur multiple times a year. So my wife and me and my daughter were on our way to the first fesh competition. And we're on our way, and she's in her, you know, competition outfit, and my wife turns to my daughter and says, her name's Lena, and says, Lena, are you nervous? And Lena looked up at both of us and said, no. And I kept driving. And then we pulled into the parking lot and we enter our first fesh competition, and there are hundreds and hundreds of students in this community college like auditorium and gymnasium. There were just people and kids everywhere. And wow, we were pretty overwhelmed by that. So then again, my wife had asked my daughter, or said to my daughter, you know, wow, Len, there's a lot of kids here. Are you nervous? And our then 6-year-old daughter looked up at both of us and she said, only when you guys ask me if I am. So the message being there that we really kind of took the anxiety that we had about her experience and like dropped it on her lap. She wasn't anxious at all. So as parents, we need to be really careful of that. So that's the lesson from the wise 7-year-old. So to recap that, don't make your anxiety their anxiety, and practice self-assessment and make adjustments. Okay, tip number 2, spot the triggers and traps. You may at some point suggest it to your child during, you know, an anxious state of theirs. Yo, just calm down and deal with it. Like, it's not that big of a deal. Just take it easy or whatever. And it's in a moment where they're like completely freaking out about a problem. This is nice. It's nice of you to do that, and as a go-to, you know, suggestion, and it's a really common one. But in the moment of like heated anxiety and when it's running really high, the suggestion usually doesn't work. And the reason for that, because it's not connected to an opportunity for them to gain insight into what is driving their anxiety through the roof, right? So this is how it works, really. Anxiety is driven by a few things. One of which, though, is, and in large part, is by the way that we think, the type of thinking that we do. And without recognizing and being able to label the type of thoughts that we're having, it's very, very hard to break cycles of anxiety. We just kind of get caught up in it over and over and over again. Worrying, for example, is a thought type that's connected to anxiety, right? And it's one of the more popular ones, and more popular, more frequent ones, and worry cycles that people go through just kind of drive anxiety along. Catastrophizing is another type. So it's like, if I don't get the score on my ACTs, I'll never get into a good school. That's a catastrophe. So here's the exercise that I want you to do to help increase their awareness of this. In a calm moment, not during the whole like anxiety spell that they're going through, challenge your child to identify all the statements that they make when they're feeling that anxiety about themselves, anxiety about other people, anxiety and thoughts about college, friends, the future, and have them be as specific as possible, and then have them identify each of those thoughts as positive or negative. They can actually draw a line in the middle of a piece of paper, list all the negatives on the left side, list all the positives on the right side. For any of the negatives, ask them to highlight any catastrophes that are coming off of that page. And then ask, how realistic do you think this outcome is? When you consistently coach your student to learn the connection between thoughts and anxiety, you'll begin to co-create an anxiety-reducing strategy for them by teaching them how to recognize anxiety-related thinking and how actually rethinking it lowers it. So here's how this plays out. Mike, a super duper successful, driven high school student, put way too much pressure on himself, making statements like, if I don't get into Stanford, I'll never get a good job, and I'll never ever be successful, and I'll never make any money. So I want you to listen very carefully to certain words that I'm going to pick out there. Words that he uses that are negative, and also these little rules that he created with those thoughts. So he used things like, if I don't, or I'll never. His thinking is generating a lot of anxiety and reflects an anticipated catastrophe. If I don't do this, then this bad thing is going to happen. Mike, after learning to deconstruct the anxiety that he constructed through thoughts, was able to really reduce his anxiety and apply this strategy to ways that he catastrophized in other areas of his life, right? So we're actually helping them to deconstruct the anxiety thoughts that led to them feeling, out of control, panicked, anxious, stressed, etc. So review tip number 1, don't make your anxiety their anxiety. Practice the self-assessment and adjustment. Tip number 2, spot the triggers and traps. Help them in exercises to deconstruct the catastrophe. Okay. Tip number 3, know your college calendar. And parents, this is really important. I mean, it's something that during orientation, college orientation, they'll talk about. I certainly talked about it when I was leading orientations and consulting with parents throughout the course of the semester. A general rule of thumb, as anxiety and stress increases, self-care decreases. It happens all the time with college students. It happens all the time with us as professionals and parents. And it happens especially with college students at very busy points of the semester. Midterms and finals are good examples of that. And one of the biggest mistakes that I see students make is minimizing self-care at the most critical, stressful points in the semester. So let's help them out with that, and here's how to do that. We want to encourage them with care. And so managing college-related anxiety occurs in several ways. In the moment, these in-the-moment strategies when anxiety escalates, and also as like an ongoing lifestyle commitment. So we do it in the moment, and we do it out of the moment as well. And studies have shown, for example, that exercising 7 to 10 minutes a day actually helps to reduce anxiety symptoms significantly. So encouraging lifestyle choices are a key to helping them manage anxiety. Parents, limit texting during midterms and finals to nothing more than supportive statements. not a good time to ask them why they painted their room a certain color last summer, or, you know, why they haven't done laundry in like 3 weeks, or, you know, wow, if you're Skyping with them or whatever, like, it looks like you haven't bathed. Like, avoid all of that, because those kinds of things increase their anxiety, and they're already anxious to begin with, even if they don't tell you that you are. And know that that by texting, especially if there's a conflict, that normally they don't get resolved really well over texting. And so it's really not the right time, and it's absolutely not beneficial across the board. I've rarely seen a time when that was really helpful to do that during stressful points in the semester. Encourage them to connect with on-campus resources. Counseling services, where I worked for 13 of the 15 years on college campuses, are incredible places to get help through an on-campus confidential resource, and all of them are really trained to help kids deal with anxiety. So encourage them to use those resources, their advisors and people like that. And remember, because this is really tough for parents, that college is about development. It's about personal development. I understand that grades are important and internships are important, but wow, if they don't develop these skills when they graduate, that's going to be really a big challenge for them. So it's about their development, and one of the most important skills that falls under the umbrella of emotional intelligence, which is something that I really, really stress, is self-regulation, and not parent regulation. So we want students to develop the skills to be able to manage their own anxiety, to manage their own stress, to figure out how to problem solve through that, because that is going to just serve huge benefits to them, down the line as they transition into high school or into college if they're a high school student, or into careers. So we really want to help them develop that self-regulation and to figure a lot of that out on their own. Learning to manage anxiety in the moment and through lifestyle behaviors will undoubtedly help your student develop a roadmap to college success, college fulfillment, and certainly career readiness. So be mindful of that for sure. Okay, so to recap, tip number 1, don't make your anxiety their anxiety. Assess and adjust. Assess and adjust. Tip number 2, spot the triggers and traps and deconstruct the catastrophe. And tip number 3, know your college calendar and encourage them with care as you're doing that. So college-related anxiety affects millions of students and families. And if you're overwhelmed with anxiety and worry for your child, you have got to figure out a way to coach effectively, and to know when it's okay for their natural consequences to take effect, and then for them to learn those things on their own. I am absolutely 100% committed to helping college students and families, and certainly parents of college students who are challenged by anxiety. I do this because it was a challenge for me, and it was something that I experienced in college, and I have coached literally thousands of students and their parents on this particular topic. I help students become more confident, develop that self-regulation skill, which is so important, manage stress, and certainly help them perform at their best. And certainly work to help parents learn to coach from afar and to help you reduce your anxiety as well, which I know so many parents experience. Anxiety is a great, great cost to students and families. What's the cost? What's it costing you and your family? College-related anxiety kicks in, junior year of high school. I feel terrible for juniors in high school, as well as seniors in high school too. So it kicks in then, and it can really drag on for years. And when students get to college, it costs so many of them a fulfilling college experience, an awesome job, And certainly, you know, the whole internship application process, graduate school application process. I mean, it really costs students a lot over the course of a long period of time. So I want to thank you all for tuning in tonight, and as a gift for attending tonight's webinar, offering you a free 30-minute breakthrough session with me. 30-minute breakthrough phone session with me. And you can schedule that by using the blue Book Now button on your page there, which should be top right-hand corner. It'll bring you right to my calendar. So during this breakthrough session on our call, I will answer your top questions. I want to focus on the issues that are most pressing and concerning to you, whether it's about this topic or about other topics that you're concerned about in relation to your student and or your parenting approach. And I want to help you refine the details on how to best help your student. Each student is unique, and this is really a great chance for us to collaborate and to create a real custom plan together that's really focused and aligned with their success and the success for your family as well. So I want to thank you again, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Any other questions, private message me, send me an email, joel@takeoncollege.com, and or you can type on a question on our Power Parent page as well, which I'm hoping you're already connected to. So I look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks for tuning in.